Hi everybody, welcome back once again to the Eastfield Gunroom YouTube channel. And today's review is something we've not looked at before, which is quite surprising given their kind of stronghold in the competition shotgun market and also making headway with game shooters worldwide as well. Today we're going to have a look at a Blaser. So the Blaser F3, which is the gun we're going to look at today, was introduced in 2003/4. It was actually designed by a very clever Russian designer by the name of Sergei Popikov. So Blaser comes under the umbrella of the other companies, which are Mauser and Sauer, which are more famous, of course, for their rifles, the straight pull rifles, etc., as are Blaser these days, to be honest with you. And it was the first foray into the shotgun market, which was the F3. Now, the key thing at the time with the F3, heavily engineered, a lot of innovation. So to give you an idea of the key points, the first thing was the way that the gun cocked. So it actually, where with a conventional over and under, it would cock when you open the gun. It actually cocked when you close the gun. And I believe the idea behind that was that once the shot had been taken, the concentration was, it wasn't the key point anymore. So you were much more relaxed when you were closing it, when you were opening it. The hammers and the firing pins were in line rather than being at an angle, which improved the lock time, which basically meant that the second you pulled the trigger, the cartridge actually ignited faster. So that was quite clever. But more importantly than that, it was a modular design. So the idea was that all the barrels weighed the same, whether it was 30-inch, 32, 34. So the shooter could swap and change barrels without affecting the balance of the gun. So there was a lot of engineering gone into this gun. If you look at it from my point of view, there's a few little Krieghoffy bits, which again ties in with it being German, and I'll talk about those in a second. Traditionally, the F3 when it first came out was a grey action, and it was basically a plain one. They did a couple of engraved versions called a Luxus and a Super Luxus, but it's got to the point today whereby the professional spec, which is the kind of the stable of the Blaser competition guns here in the UK, and that includes a black action because again, competition guns largely tend to be plain. However, with the result of the fact that it's become a huge brand here in the UK and again worldwide, there are now endless options that you can have on your F3, and this is no exception. So what we've got here is we have got a completely hand engraved F3. So rather than the plain standard black action like the F3 competition was sort of comes with a standard, what you've got now is you've got the Blaser custom shop where anything is possible. I've seen guns being brought into the UK with exceptional engraving, all sorts of crazy mythical dragons, that sort of stuff. And because, again, a bit like Perazzi, because they're not huge volume manufacturers, particularly of the F3, they have the time and they have the option and they have the facilities to make such special guns. Now, this particular gun, as part of what was called the Gundog Trio, and this was commissioned by Blaser of Bristol, which is a UK premium Blaser dealer. And they basically did, I believe, a Labrador, a Spaniel, which is this, and another dog, which I put a Hungarian Vizsla or something like that, which would be, again, related to shooting. So what you've got here is you've got a low profile action with absolutely incredible hand engraving by master engraver at Blaser, Josephine Grubel. And what it does is we've got this really nice sort of very deep Germanic scroll work. I think I talked about in the one of the Browning videos, I think there was the B25 B2G. In Europe, they do like this very deep, like I say, almost mystical dragon type of deep scroll. In some cases, you look at the guns of a Harry Potter film, that kind of stuff. So what we've got here, got the Blaser logo. Actually got the Blaser of Bristol logo on the bottom, which is these two pheasants. They've got cross tails. Beautifully deep scroll engraving all over the trigger. And then in the middle of the action, you've got this kind of a vignette that looks like it's been opened like a zip with a Spaniel retrieving a game bird. And the attention to detail, bearing in mind this has been done completely by hand, completely by Josephine, is just exceptional. Trigger guard, again, completely engraved, back strap, and it's just little touches like this. You've got this, it looked like some jester shoes engraving down the back strap. Again, engraved safety catch, engraved top lever, all done by hand as part of their custom process at the Blaser custom shop, engraved fore end iron. Now, what's quite interesting with this particular gun is that the barrel wings aren't engraved, whereas typically with a custom shop Blaser, I'd imagine you would have that. But again, it comes down to the modular design. If somebody wanted a 30-inch rather than a 32-inch. This is particularly as a 30-inch gun. You could just swap it out, you know, and that's the whole idea behind it, because you end up with a gun that's got different barrel lengths and therefore multiple purposes, uses, and it's very, very universal and very shooter friendly, shall we say. We've talked about the essentially the mechanics of it. This has got a mechanical trigger, a bit like a Krieghoff. Very, very crisp trigger pulls. If you're a Blaser owner, you will know these are right up there with the likes of Perazzi, Keyman, DT10s, DT11s, Krieghoffs. Very, very crisp, exceptional trigger pulls. Like I said, because it's mechanical, it improves the lock time as well. So a lot of innovation gone into this gun. In terms of tolerances, much, much better tolerances than a mass-produced Browning or a Miracle or something like that. And when you close the gun, it just feels so positive, so smooth. Typically German, you know, I don't want to make the VW analogy, but it's like the door on a Golf. So like I said, this is a one of one. It's part of the Gundog trio. You know, it's kind of the ultimate homage to man's best friend, the Spaniel, which is probably the most popular kind of hunting shooting dog, particularly here in the UK, alongside, you know, the Labs. If you look at the barrels themselves, you can see they've got this kind of matte finish on them. Now this is plasma nitride, and what that does is it makes the finish on the metal much more durable, much more hard wearing. Again, we've looked at it in different videos. Manufacturers now are looking at the longevity of the coatings on the steel, like Cerakote and the like. And you could argue that because that Blaser were doing this 20 years ago, they were probably a bit ahead of everybody else with this kind of finish. 18.6 bore barrels, so they're slightly overboard. We've got a 10.5 by 8.5 tapered rib. Standard red foresight bead. Did you get a snazzy set of foresight beads with the gun? Flush fit chokes, which are Briley, and everything that comes out of Germany, particularly Blaser, particularly Krieghoff, is high performance, superior, steel proofed, regardless of what it is. So one of the key things of the F3 is that it's very customizable. You might remember we did the Browning Ultra XS Pro video. This gun's no different. You get a series of barrel weights that you can fit under the fore end, just under the fore end. At the same time, there is also a balancing system for the stock, which is quite clever, because it's what you've got is you've got weights that go on a threaded bar, which is essentially the stock bolt, and you can wind them backwards and forwards depending on where you want the balance of the shotgun to be. Like I said, a bit like the Browning, very customizable. You know, not everybody wants a shotgun that balances on the hinge pin. Some people, like myself, I like one that's stock heavy, some because it speeds the barrels up. Some people want the weight in the front end. A gun like this, you can play around with it and you can get it exactly right depending on your specification and requirements. So the actual gun weighs 8 pounds 6 ounces as it is. Like I said, this has been produced in the custom shop in Germany. So as you would expect, it balances on the hinge pin. So the trigger selector is very interesting in itself. Early F3s have got this kind of roller switch you had to pull backwards and forwards, which was a little bit fiddly. What they've done now is they've adopted this kind of little paddle, very similar to the Krieghoff, where you've got B and T. What that does is it kind of eliminates the possibility of you accidentally selecting the wrong barrel when you put the safety catch on, etc., which, you know, we've talked about before with like old Beretta trap guns that had a locking screw. I think it was on the 694 DTR maybe on that review. So very well thought of. A lot of ingenuity gone into it. Typically German, a lot of innovation. The ejectors themselves, from memory, very complex, very complicated, really good ejectors. If you've got a Blaser, you know what I mean. They fire things, cartridges, snap caps, whatever, for miles. But a very, very complex process. You know, nothing straightforward. It's not like a Browning where you take the screw out, or a Beretta where you push it in and twist it. Typically German, to the point where you could argue it's over-engineered, but, you know, it's bolt and braces, exceptionally thorough in the design process, right through to, obviously, the manufacturing. One point I do want to make, if you have been tempted by the Blaser range of shotgun, and why wouldn't you be? It's very difficult to compare the likes of an F16 to an F3 because they are a completely different animal. So we talked about the barrel weights, talk about the trigger. Gold trigger on this one. Again, you can have a silver trigger, whatever you want, courtesy of the custom shop. It is designed to your specification. The trigger guard, beautifully engraved again with this open zip at the bottom, like a Venus flytrap. And also it's actually engraved on the actual top of the trigger block, which is something you don't tend to see very often, only on very, very, very high-end shotguns. Let's not argue, this is one of those. On to the wood. One thing I've always liked about the F3, in the early days, they didn't quite get the stock dimensions right for me. They were a bit narrow at the front and they were a bit too low because there was a lot of models. They did a game competition, and it all got a little bit confusing. The most popular sporting dimension they manufacture is 3850, which for me is great because you've only got 12mm drop, which compared to a conventional sporting stock of maybe 2022, much, much better, higher in the comb, and I really like it. Triple point checkering, nice, bit of a palm swell, again, very nice, very nicely finished. Now, what you can't fail to realise when you look at this particular gun is the quality of the woodwork. Alongside the master engraving of Josephine Grable, we have got this absolutely sensational grade 9/10, I believe, exhibition grade woodwork. European, but just look at the colours in it. You've got beautiful black streaks with the kind of honey comparison. I've said it before, I am a big fan of light coloured wood with the right kind of figuring, or also with a black action gun, but I think with this they've got it absolutely spot on. Standard Blaser recoil pad. Now, this is very easy to remove to get to your stop bolt, to get to your weight. It's just 2 screws, and again, as you would with all good competition shotguns, you do get a stop bolt tool, so you can obviously remove the stop bolt to put the weights on, and also ensure that the stop bolt is kept nice and tight. This is a right-handed gun, not a huge amount of cast, so suitable for most shooters, but they also are available in left-handed. Forend wise, this is the London style forend. Now, from my point of view, Blaser were kind of one of the first people to introduce this kind of forend style from memory. Initially, they all came with this dreadful schnabel that had got bigger lips than Mick Jagger on the front. This London style that they've adopted, really, really nice, feels good in the hand. Checkering, I can kind of take it or leave it on the forend. Looks a bit like it's come out of a Marvel comic to me. I think there are cleaner, sleeker designs on the market, but you can't get away from the fact that this gun is beautifully presented. It feels really good, feels really solid. I've had a couple of Blaser F3s myself, and like I said, the trigger pulls are one of the absolute draws for me for this shotgun. Now, in terms of worldwide success, from its birth, John Bidwell, very, very famous English shooter, now a veteran, was involved with the development side of the F3, and he's gone on to win, I think, 5 or 6 FitAsk world titles using an F3. In terms of the backup here in the UK, Ian Mulliner handles all the service and the warranty repair. Again, very, very competent gunsmith. There's nothing he doesn't know about Blasers, and also he's been heavily involved with the innovation and the development of this gun through the years. So that's the gun in essence. We move on to the box of goodies. I mean, this case is, you could argue it's a little bit over the top, but it is very, very special. So you've got kind of tan leather trims. Now, the idea with this is that if you wanted to carry around an additional set of barrels, like I say, we've talked about, this is a modular design. So the idea with that is you can have a 30-inch or a 32. They even do a 34, so you can carry it all around in this neat travel case. So there's your stop bolt, also handy for conducting music. Okay, put that back in there. So we talked about the barrel weights, 4 of them, 2 for each side of the barrels, 42.5 grams, which is about 1.5 ounces. So there's a considerable amount of weight can be added to the front. The stock weights are currently situated inside the gun. You get a nice bit of Waffen grease, which is German grease that you can put on your German gun. Really nice Briley choke wrench. And what's really nice with this particular gun, as it's part of the Blaser custom shop portfolio, you get this handy little wallet, which you can also use for your passport or your shotgun license. And if you take it out, it's just a nice little touch. It's been filled in by hand, saying what the gun is, and also it's signed by Josephine Grable, who, as I've mentioned many times, is the artist that engraved this fabulous Spaniel and deep scroll masterpiece. Incidentally, it's also worth pointing out, in terms of the reliability and durability of these guns, they are offered here in the UK in particular with a 10-year warranty, which I believe is transferable. And that kind of is it. Blaser broke through onto the competition scene, well, shotgun scene if you like, in 2004, and since then they've really, really made waves. The sky's the limit, anything is possible. We've seen from this fantastic piece. If you just want a standard black F3 Pro to go out and shoot clays with, no problem at all. You will still get all these facilities in terms of the balance weights. You will still get the excellent trigger pulls, and you also get a heap of innovation in terms of the way the gun cocks, the way it ejects, and it's just a nice piece of kit. Like I said, here at Eastfield Gunroom, we don't do normal, so we were never going to bring you a plain black action one, were we? We were always going to bring you something that made you go, wow. That is the 1 of 1 Spaniel special edition from the Gundog Trio from the Blaser Custom Shop. If you've got any questions about a particular gun, please contact me directly. Don't forget to check out the website. Don't forget to keep liking and subscribing to the channel and watching the videos. And from me and the little Spaniel, that's all, folks.